On this week's episode, Dragon Ball is super at the box office. HBO enters the House of the Dragon, and will the world be saved again by Archer? All this and more as we once again delve into the pop culture cosmos. And we're back with another episode of the Pop Culture Cosmos. This is Gerald Glassford from Pop Culture Cosmos, Game Source, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, and the Lakers Fast Break. We truly appreciate everyone out there listening to all of our great shows. And if you can, please give us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts. Plus, if you can like, share, subscribe, follow, or do anything that you can to support us right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos, Game Source, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, the Lakers Fast Break, the Happy Hoarder, Humanican Media, and everything that we do today and every day at the Pop Culture Cosmos on Facebook, including the fact that we are the #1 tabletop RPG streamer that's out there on Facebook. Plus, we cover the latest news and trends in pop culture every single day right there on Pop Culture Cosmos on Facebook. And if you can support all that, plus everything that we do all over on social media at the Pop Culture Cosmos and our website, popculturecosmos.com, it is sincerely appreciated. But it wouldn't be a Pop Culture Cosmos without a good friend. And without my good friend, he is our own guy from the Borderlands that you got to go ahead and check out today at Humanican Media, the Happy Hoarder, coming up soon. Plus also as well, popculturecosmos.com. He's the man behind the Happy Hoarder. Also as well, one of the great people behind the great podcast that you got to go ahead and check out today called the Super BS Gamescast. And of course, his book, Congratulations, You Suck. It is my good friend. It is Josh Peterson. What's up, man?
What is up, dude? I gotta say that I enjoyed that countdown timer that you had. Like that was probably my favorite one that we've ever used. So
There you go. Shout out to Restream on that
well
one.
done.
There you
Yeah,
go. I just wanted to make sure to let you know that I had to think of that on the fly with the Borderlands stuff. I was thinking about that.
that's
Your
good.
own Dragon Ball Z,
Yeah,
but yeah. So I
you
was
know,
like,
you know
that's.
my problem with like printed shirts, like the pop culture shirts, they shrink
Mm-hmm.
so fast.
Most of them do.
Oh
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
and it's hard to find like a good quality shirt that you can like put through the dryer because it
Yes.
makes me feel like I'm getting fat. Like it's just like it. I like right here, like I can't. There's no like clearance between like my arm and the sleeve, and it just makes me feel
Well, I'm
like
wearing the Star Wars Rise of the Resistance, the awesome ride, the best
mhm,
ride on the planet, which is available now at Disneyland and Disney World. I got this in the first few weeks of the exact ride. And
mhm,
the thing is, when you buy these shirts at Disneyland, they're like 20, 30, or, I think I got this on eBay because they were already sold out at Orlando. So I went and got this. You spend $35 whatnot on these shirts, and especially the ones at Disneyland, they just stop fitting right after like one time. And like you said, you put it in the dryer through one time, and it's already done.
exactly. And with something you buy from Disneyland for $45 or more, you should be able to get something that's like quality. That's gonna like that will
Every
literally
shirt
like
I've bought, yeah, it's just
yeah.
no.
If it gets a hole, it should like literally be able to restitch itself. Like that's the kind of money. That's what you should get from it.
You would think, but instead, I got shirts that like stretch themselves out. Looks like dogs have been fighting with this and just chewing it on the sides. And yeah, I've
Mhm.
got other shirts, Star Wars shirts that I bought there, and other shirts I bought there that are in really bad shape after like 2 or 3 washings. I don't even wear anymore. Yeah, it's just a shame.
Yeah.
But the one that does work, the one that's been around for a while, that's still in great shape, wouldn't you know, is the Mickey Mouse shirt I wear. Funny how that works out.
So, yeah, they're looking out for their own brand. That's what they got to do.
That's what they got to do indeed. But we got a great show on tap. We're going to be hearing Josh's thoughts on Dragon Ball Superhero. We'll tell you how super it did at the box office coming up here in a minute. Plus HBO debuts. In fact, it already will have debuted by the time you hear this. House of the Dragon. What's the advance word on this? And what does everybody think? And what will everybody think of what's going down with this prequel to the awesome Game of Thrones series? Well, that's coming up in a bit. Plus, also as well, Madden is out, but do you care? We'll talk about the Madden NFL series coming again to video games and how it is here, has arrived, and really not come out with a whole lot of fanfare. We'll talk about that. Plus, also as well, another video game that is coming out this week is the reboot of Saints Row. Are we excited or are we concerned about Saints Row coming out this week? Plus, also as well, we will go ahead and talk about the Embracer Group and about its latest acquisition last week of the rights to much of the Lord of the Rings. Is this actually a good move, and what exactly does this entail? We'll talk about that coming up on the back end of the show. Archer is back on FX this week. That's in season 13. We will talk about this under the radar, very funny, just awesome, pretty darn good show that's been around forever, yet nobody seems to talk about it. We'll talk about that, but we will talk about that coming up here in a bit. Plus, also as well, which latest reboot idea does excites Josh the most? Is it Ally McBeal, Ferris Beuller, or Ocean's 11? Or does any of them excite him at all? We'll talk about that. Plus, She-Hulk. He has thoughts on that coming up on the back end of the show as well. But first, my friend, it is the box office, and this weekend it is Dragon Ball Superhero, earning about $22 million domestically here at the box office in what usually is a very front loaded first weekend movie. It usually will drop about 75 to 80% for its second and third weeks and then pretty much be forgotten about from there until it hits home video or streaming of some type. But for now, we can rejoice that Dragon Ball Superhero is the number one box office movie right now in America. Your thoughts on it? You actually did go to the theater, redeemed the ticket. It actually worked this time and actually showed off after the fiasco of last week, where seemingly so many outlets messed up on the release date. Your thoughts on Dragon Ball Superhero?
I liked it. It was, there's a lot of exposition, a lot of like build up to things happening, but I thought it was good. It was a good, the film seemed like it was a tribute to those here because when you think of Dragon Ball, you think of two characters. You think of Goku, you think of Vegeta,
Mhm.
and this was a nice tribute. Dragon Ball Super especially had this big focus on those two characters, but Dragon Ball Superhero, it was a tribute to the characters who got left behind, mainly Gohan and Piccolo. And they did talk about how Gohan has like the power to be the most powerful like warrior, Saiyan warrior on the planet. So I feel like with the coming Dragon Ball series that is being worked on, whatever that ends up being, whether it's like Super 2 or whatever they're doing, I think that he's going to play a big part in that. And then they kind of gave Piccolo like a new form. They called it Orange Piccolo, so they're not really being imaginative with that. But anyways, they kind of give them a moment to shine, which is cool. They bring back the Red Ribbon Army, so like Gohan's cleaning up an old enemy that his dad had allegedly defeated back in the day.
Mhm.
And then it features Trunks and Goten and all like the Krillin and all like the sub characters that often get overshadowed in the wake of Goku and Vegeta. So it was good. It was good. It had some comedic elements to it, had some serious elements to it. They introduced a Cell Max, so it's basically is a nice ode to the Cell saga, where Gohan actually was the most powerful fighter there. And yeah, I have to say I enjoyed it. My oldest daughter came out going, where was Goku and Vegeta? Because they just have a brief scene with them, and then but she ended up liking it. What I gotta say, what I love about the Dragon Ball series is that it has this ability to transcend time, like and generations. So it's always there's something for everybody there. Like you can jump into one of these series and not feel like you have to watch the 80s Dragon Ball or the 90s Dragon Ball Z or early 2000s Dragon Ball GT. You can just kind of like jump into it and enjoy it. So even if you don't know anything about Dragon Ball, you can sit down and watch Dragon Ball Superhero and still get something out of it.
And we've talked about this before as far as the long history and lineage of the IP when it concerns the video game side. About
Hmm.
at one time, they were releasing as much as what, two or three releases of
Yeah.
the Dragon Ball series each and every year, and they still do bring out games from time to time. But now, when you're talking about as well from the video and film end, it's now a long lineage of history there. Obviously, what's where the video games originate from, but this IP is huge in certain parts of this culture, in certain parts of this anime world. People take it for granted, but I think after understanding what's going on with the box office and the fact that it hit number one in the box office, and we talk about this whenever an anime movie hits number one at the box office, it's
Yeah.
usually very front loaded. The fan base is very fervent the first week or 2 weeks, and then basically they go and support it on a home video and streaming format. But really, it just sends a message each and every time that for the first week or two, the anime versions of these IPs should not be discounted at all.
Oh, absolutely not. And it's it's interesting because you go into like the newer animes, Demon Slayer, whatever else is out there.
Because if Demon Slayer came out, it would do the same thing. It hit straight right to number one, and it would do a ton of box office the first week or two.
Right, right. But if you look at something like Demon Slayer, it's got like a newer fan base, like newer anime fans are on board with it. But if you go to like walking into the Dragon Ball theater, you have people from all different walks of life. Like you have kids in there, you have your newer anime fans, and then you have people like me who grew up with the series, don't really watch a lot of anime anymore, but we're there, like people in their 30s, people in their 40s, people who like grew up watching the show, or maybe caught onto the show because their kids liked it. Like it's just every walk of life was represented in that movie theater, and I thought that was really cool because I do have great memories as a kid going, like I would ride my bike to Target and pick up the new Dragon Ball VHSs as they came out, the ones that like formed the picture on the side. Yeah, so I don't know, it's like that was a big part of my childhood, and I like looking around that theater, like I can tell that it was the same thing for everybody else in there, and that's something that is really cool to me. Looking at that, it is no wonder Dragon Ball like speaks to people of all different generations too, and it's I don't know, I just like I think it's really fascinating, but I also think it's really wonderful.
You mentioned Demon Slayer, and if that came out this weekend with a movie, for instance, like if Mugen Train or something out came out in as far as in the realm of Demon Slayer, that you're right, it would skew a lot younger. It would skew teenagers, like my daughter. My youngest daughter is a huge fan of Demon Slayer, so
Mm.
it would skew towards her and around that age, as opposed to like you said, because you see Dragon Ball, and Dragon Ball's been an IP famous in the anime world for decades, and
Mhm.
that it transcends now individuals who saw it in the 90s, 2000s, and now today.
Yeah, and it's insane though. I mean, even look, I got Box Office Mojo up on the computer here, and like $28 million for an anime movie. Like that's completely absurd if you think about it. And wow, it's insane that like it's this is what we need. Like this could be something. Like what if we reach a system where it's not so many like big budget films coming out, but a lot of films like Dragon Ball, like
Yeah,
these anime series, because anime is still new. It's like, I mean, it's been out since the 90s, but like it's still a relatively new fad in America, much like comic book. That comic book culture took so many years to grow, but now we're seeing anime total start to like build momentum here. And obviously with $28 million in revenue, like this is something that is there's a market for it. So my hope is that we'll get to see more stuff like this as the months and years go on.
absolutely. I mean, to give everybody an idea how popular it is and front loaded it is, I mean, it clearly doubled what the second place movie, the movie Beast with Idris Elba, a famous actor, has supported many projects. He's a favorite of us as far as his work is concerned. his movie Beast came out with only less than half, 10 million at domestic box office. So that tells you right there the power of Dragon Ball superhero, and the growing fascination people have with anime. I know that Netflix, obviously Crunchyroll, they've become major powerhouses in the world of anime, showcasing the different types of things that are out there in the world of anime. We know that even Disney and Disney Plus has touched on anime with the Star Wars anime series, and it's something that people are now taking seriously. We know that live action movies are coming in the realm as far as Netflix with One Piece. We know that Netflix has already delved into live action, pretty much so far mixed results as far as that's concerned, but they are coming out with a One Piece live action. So
Mhm.
the the anime industry is becoming bigger and hotter and more popular than ever, and I'm happy to see that. Happy to see that type of influence. Still waiting for that live action Akira, seeing if they're going to go ahead and make
Oh
that a
my
reality.
gosh,
That
it was
seems to be,
beautiful.
yes. I think you and I will be like, I don't know. I think we'll be dead and buried in the ground for like 10 years when it finally comes out, because it seems to be in like
What a
production
legacy
hell.
that would be. Yeah, right, right. But I mean, even like after the original generation of people that watched Akira are gone and buried, and somehow Akira is still like just this pop culture icon with people. Like,
Yes.
what a legacy! Like, as what's the Atomo? What Atomo? I think is the guy's name that wrote that. But wow, what a legacy to leave behind.
Well, I told you the first time we talked about anime on this show. I said the first thing and the first anime property I ever saw was Akira, which I would
Mhm.
not recommend to everybody because the fact it is so wonderful and it's still, even so many years later, so good that it kind of ruins you for so many years on watching anything else in the anime industry. And it did for me for a long time, because I
Yeah,
compared it to anything I watched. I compared it to Akira, and it just paled in comparison. But now that the anime industry has evolved, I as far as so many different aspects of it, there's now more things to watch that are of real good quality. Dragon Ball, we mentioned, as far as just a Demon Slayer, just all these different properties now that are out there. It's finally okay to say, what, there are things that have evolved beyond Akira. Akira is still great and a classic in and of itself, but there's still so many things to watch within the world of anime.
oh, absolutely. And what okay, what are your this is all speculation. We're walking down rumor street right now. Um, Kevin Feige is all this news that Kevin Feige is currently developing a Dragon Ball live action universe. Have you heard anything about that?
I've heard about that. I've heard about the fact that he wants to produce a Star Wars movie. I want to. He's also talked, is also behind the scenes as far as creating Captain America's Love Life. So,
Right, right.
he's a very busy man. I will
He's
just put it at that.
busy
But
man.
yes,
But how do you think a live action Dragon Ball world would transcend into uh into a sorry, the Dragon Ball series, how do you think that would transcend into a live action piece?
see,
As we saw,
I
it was
that's going to be hard.
awful
I don't
the
know.
first
I
time. Yeah.
remember I liked what Netflix did as far as bringing an anime property to life, and you
Mhm.
saw they didn't support it, and they cut it out after 10 episodes and they canceled it. So
No, that
we'll
was
see.
wait, which one? Which one is that?
That was, of course, Cowboy Bebop.
Oh, Cowboy Bebop. Oh, yeah, 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 sorry. No,
Yes,
I
and that,
remember
and
Justin
One Piece is
Long.
coming up. We'll see what we're
Mhm.
there. Yeah.
And didn't Justin it was Justin something or other starred in, the live action Dragon Ball movie. Do you remember that? And it had,
Yeah.
Amy Rossum in it, and everyone hated it.
Yeah, and again, it just depends on how much you're going to go ahead and get, love, how much love you will get it, and how much money you'll support behind it. Will it look good on the screen?
Yeah.
Again, I really enjoyed the Cowboy Bebop series. I know it kind of tailed off at the end for a lot of people. I know that the fact that it got canceled, I think it should have given life as a second season,
Should've been
maybe
given one
given
more
some
chance.
tweaks. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it never got the chance. Never got the chance indeed. But getting back to what we're seeing with Dragon Ball Superhero, we are definitely liking what we're seeing from there. And we know it just sends a message to the movie industry and Hollywood out there that the anime industry is real, is popular, and is taking notice that it is something that could be even evolving even more down the road with both live action and more, of course, anime for all these different streaming and movie outlets. So, really looking forward to seeing what the future holds for Dragon Ball Super, Superhero, and everything as well in the anime industry. What are your thoughts out there on Dragon Ball Super, Superhero? You heard Josh's review. He liked it. Did you like it too? Or are you ready to go ahead and check out Dragon Ball Super, Superhero today? Please let us know your thoughts. PopCultureCosmos at yahoo.com. My friend, my friend, much more to talk about on today's program. HBO has this little return that they intend to go ahead and show off tonight as we're recording this. HBO's House of the Dragon, much hyped, putting over $100 million of Warner Brothers money, which right now is very much controversial right now. In fact, right around the type of money it takes to go ahead and put out a Batgirl movie. But, need I digress on that. But as far as to advertise this major series coming up for HBO and HBO Max, your thoughts on this prequel to the Game of Thrones, where the Targaryens, they're facing off. The House of Targaryens is definitely in an uproar about what's going on as far as the fight for the Iron Throne begins. Your thoughts and your excitement and your anticipation for HBO's and HBO Max's House of the Dragon.
So I've been talking about this show for a bit with my wife, and we're gonna watch it. I mean, I don't know how she's gonna feel about it. She wants to get into Game of Thrones, but she like made the mistake of jumping in like mid-season on like the first or second season of the show, and she kind of got bored because there's just Game of Thrones is almost all exposition until like the last two seasons, so it is tough. I understand that. So we're gonna start with House of the Dragon, and we're gonna watch that, and then once that ends, we'll jump into Game of Thrones, and hopefully by that time, the Jon Snow show or whatever the sequel's out, whatever the sequel's called, will be out. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited to go back to that world. Like I'm in no hurry to watch Game of Thrones again. It's just it was interesting, it was intriguing, but it got boring. It did get really boring. So
That last season, as you and I bemoaned on this
yeah.
show, was not what all it was cracked up to be.
Yeah. So, and then like I look at House of the Dragons, and it has dragons in it. It has dragons and it has swords, and I don't know if there's any sorcery in there, but it has all the stuff that makes a good fantasy show. So like and they've obviously learned their lessons from the shortcomings of Game of Thrones. So I'm really like expecting the big things from the show, and which I guess is going to make it all the more disappointing if it's not that great. But yeah, I mean, this is something I'm definitely ready to head into. What about you? Are you lining up to what? Not lining up? Are you like excited to watch this?
I'm not excited to watch it. I'm not a huge Game of Thrones fan, as I told you during our course of our reviewing of the last season. It's something that I did get back into in season 6 and season 7. I actually stepped out after Sean Bean got cut off,
Yeah,
literally.
yeah, I
I
got
thought
you.
that was a turn off to me at the time, so I kind of said, you know what, no Ned Stark, really just not interested in it. But you know what, I got back into it because it was just so popular. You got to check it
Mhm.
out, Gerald. You got to check it out, Gerald. You got to check it out. I heard so much of that in my daily life. I said, fine, I'll check it out. And season 6 and season 7, it was really getting good. I was really starting to enjoy it. Then, season 8 happened, and it all
Yeah,
went downhill from there. So I mean, I guess I'm okay with going into it. I'm looking more forward to the Lord of the Rings
yeah, yeah.
series to me, and it's not even close. But I am going to go ahead and check it out. I mean, just because it's going to be what everybody's going to be talking about for the next few days, so I am going to be checking out and sharing some thoughts on it. So yes, I will go ahead and do so. But it's just not something I like. I got to go ahead and have to see, but I just know I will make
Mhm.
some time for it, just because of the fact that I know that it's going to be what everybody's going to be talking about this week.
It's a pop culture movement.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Just people are now excited for it, and of course, this comes at a time where HBO and HBO Max and this whole HBO Discovery conglomerate is really in need of some good press after some many weeks of really hard times about all the money that they've lost, all the shows that
Mhm.
they've cut, the movies that they've cut, the fact that they just cut over 200 episodes of Sesame Street off of HBO Max because they
Yeah, I
didn't want to
saw
pay
that.
the
What?
residual. It's all
Oh,
about money.
is that what's going on? Okay.
It's all
All
about
right.
residuals.
I was
Well,
curious,
my
like where that was coming from.
my friend, the old thing that we say, it's about the money. It's always about
Yeah,
the money. So
yeah.
yeah, it's just always about the residual. That's why they've been cutting out all these things from HBO Max. So I'm hoping that they can go ahead and generate some good news. I know a lot of people will be looking forward to it, but yes, right now it comes off the very bad time for HBO Max and HBO right now with all the bad publicity it's gotten. So hopefully this will turn things around for them in a good way. So we're looking forward to seeing what's coming up with HBO's House of the Dragon. Are you looking forward to getting back into the Game of Thrones with the prequel, House of the Dragon, and looking for some dragons? Please let us know your thoughts. PopCultureCosmos at yahoo.com. But before we hit the break, my friend, it's back for all you NFL video game lovers out there. Madden NFL 23 hit store shelves late last week, and I guess it's people just going about it and getting their game on once again. All the NFL fans are worrying about the NFL star ratings and what their player ratings are for the different players that are out there. And I know the NFL players are tweeting about whether or not they like their NFL player ratings. The game itself is getting mediocre reviews, nothing too outlandishly great this time around. I know the microtransactions are back, which I know everybody is not too happy about. I mean, at one time before Call of Duty, this was the annual event game. It is still
Oh,
a very popular game. It's still,
hmm.
I'm going to just stress that out there. NFL will be pushing this. You'll see this on NFL games. It's still going to be something that's pushed out there. But FIFA has evolved beyond it as the number one sports game in the world out there. But it's still extremely popular. But yes, as I mentioned before, back in the 90s with when it evolved on Genesis and then in the early 2000s before Call of Duty really kicked in, it was the yearly event game that came out that people had to have. Your thoughts on where Madden stands now in the pantheon of the video game industry?
So the that's a tough question because as we've discussed before, like the landscape of media has changed. Like people are not spending money the way that they used to, and this is blame it on streaming services, blame it on COVID. It's just the world has changed, and so
Well, the video game industry got huge over the past years because everybody was
it
stuck at home.
it did,
This
but
year, not
was
so much.
right, but was when it got big right there, were people buying brand new games?
They were downloading it digitally.
They're downloading them digitally, but I mean, we saw more of like a rise in physical games for stuff that had been out for what 20 plus years. It was retro games got this huge like it's a
But the
boom and
brand new industry, yeah,
skyrocket.
the video game industry went huge, has gotten huge
It
profits in the
it
in 2020 and 20 excuse me 2021 and 22
yes.
this year is when it's fallen. It's fallen hard because it's not been able to replicate what the past 2 years have been for the video game industry.
No, and we're not getting with those COVID relief checks, right? So we're not getting just like money that we can throw away like that. So, uh, looking at something like Madden, like where people in a time where people aren't spending, a lot of don't have as much disposable income or trying to hang on to it. I don't look at a game like Madden or NBA 2K or even MLB, the show or whatever that
Yes.
property.
Yeah.
Um, I don't see games like that doing so well. Even like looking at NHL 2K, you see all the or NHL 17, all these sports properties, right? You go to Target, you go to Best Buy, you go to Walmart. These games are on sale like every other week for 50% off. So I mean, that goes to tell me that like people aren't really scooping these games up like they used to. Like some people every year it was the Madden, it was NHL, NBA, it was Call of Duty, all these yearly games. People this would be the one thing that people bought per year, but now you don't see that anymore. Like you don't see people willing to go out and pay for things like that.
I still think that this month it will lead the MPD. I think just because of the fact that it has a fan base large enough to go ahead and support it. But you're right. What it does in September, October, November, December, and beyond. it's going to be interesting to see how much people still will support it in the coming weeks and months. Again, you'll see it advertised all over NFL games, and that's going to be a big help to it because of the fact that NFL games are so popular here in the United States and even in abroad in certain areas. So Madden should benefit from that. But how much, like you said, it all depends on if people want to go ahead and spend their disposable income, whatever they have of it, which is not what they had in the past 2 years, is
Yeah.
going to be a lot different. So, I mean, I think that people are going to go ahead and still spend money on it, but to the extent that what they did in the past 2 years, no. I think the situation and the landscape has changed, and the video game purchases are going to be limited. Plus, the fact that in its other side is that the fact that there's been such a dearth of releases that
Mhm.
people just may be forced to go ahead and get it just because of the fact that it's something new with so many games that have been canceled and pushed to 2023.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So it's yeah, and yeah, I mean, if you're gonna go pick up a Madden game out of boredom, like there are definitely a lot better things you could be spending your money on.
And
Uh,
we'll talk about that here in a sec if that's with Saints Row.
yeah, yeah. So perhaps there are people that are gonna go. I mean, I'm sure there are people that are gonna go out and buy it because I remember seeing like pre-order parties for this stuff back in the day, and people do get excited about these games, but when you look at something like this, you look at the way that people are spending their money, and you look at the fact that like Madden could easily just be a digital game that puts out a patch each year to upgrade players. It makes it seem like $60 to $70 is a really steep price point for something like that.
And I remember the days back when I was running game stores where it would be 300 pre-orders already set for Madden before it came out.
Mhm.
Those days I don't see that are there, but it is still very much a vaunted franchise, and I still think it's going to lead the MPD for this month, anyways. But what it does beyond or for the rest of the year, it's still in question. But I still think there's a love for Madden because people have to get the latest yearly episode of Madden as Madden NFL 23 has
Mhm.
hit the store shelves, but its long term success, we'll find out what that will be. And I think that this year will go a long way to determine the long-term success of the franchise.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And even, you had brought up FIFA, like I'm curious what that's going to look like this year, especially with no FIFA coming out, like what is EA's new soccer franchise going to look like? Um, what is FIFA going to be putting out their own game? Cuz FIFA is still like one of the hottest selling games of all time.
Yeah.
And exactly, speaking back to people not spending money, these games are always riddled with microtransactions, and we learned that from the former CEO of EA. Like he was saying that people are stupid not to put microtransactions in these games. So like, what's that going to look like for them?
What are your thoughts out there on Madden NFL 23? Are you playing it already, or are you getting ready to go ahead and get in the huddle and get yourself a copy of Madden? Or are you tiring of the yearly installments of this video game franchise that has been such a big part of the industry for decades now? Share us your thoughts. Popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. Well, we're coming back. We're back on the back half of the show. It's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here with, of course, my good friend, Mr. Josh Culture Cosmos, aka Josh Peterson. Before we go ahead on the back end of the show, it is that time again to go ahead and remind you that the Happy Hoarder is on the way, and there's a new update that we have for you. So, Josh, you recently posted on social media a date for a time that you will go live with the Happy Hoarder.
Heck yeah, man. September 2nd, we're gonna be launching the website, and in the days leading up, if you want to follow the Facebook page, I'm gonna be talking a little bit about some of the things that we'll have on launch day. I am still, of course, in the process of like doing all the wholesale license and all that. So as soon as I get that, there'll be a lot more things available. But for right now, this is kind of things that I've curated over the past few years. You'll be able to get your hands on some of that stuff and see what we got going on. And yeah, I'm really excited about it.
All right. If you want to go ahead and check it out again, September 2nd, that's going to be happyhoarder.com. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. So check it out indeed. or you can get the latest updates if you like the page, The Happy Hoarder, on Facebook. Go ahead and like the page right now and support his GoFundMe, which you can go ahead and help finance and make true the reality for Josh and the Happy Hoarder right now on GoFundMe as well. But my friend,
Exactly.
there's so much.
Yep. Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say I appreciate it.
Absolutely. But my friend, there's so much more to talk about on today's program. Speaking of video games that are coming out this week, and a game that probably should have been best to come out maybe a month ago instead of right after, like you said, spending $60 or $70 on Madden NFL 23, is the reboot of Saints Row. I know not everybody will be buying Madden that will buy Saints Row, or that will buy Saints Row that will buy Madden, but having two games that are going to be a little bit more higher profile than the average video game coming out back to back in a year where there's not as many video game releases or high profile releases is kind of, I don't know, not the best idea. But your thoughts on this? It is a reboot of Saints Row, a very much beloved video game series from the past that was a very crazy, outlandish, very comedic, very fun loving, at least the first two versions of it, anyways, of GTA, as far as being an open world, very amusing satire of GTA in many ways. Your thoughts on this reboot of a more serious, more grounded Saints Row? Is this the right move? And is this something you really wanted to see?
So I do not have any interest in playing Saints Row. Like I know that people love it or hate it, but for me, it's not really something I am in a hurry to play. Like I played the last Saints Row entry. I forget what Saints Row 3, I think it was, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean it was fun for a little bit, fun for a few days, and then I just kind of got over it.
It
you
peaked
know,
at Saints Row 2, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah. So I it's not this is not something no, I'm not gonna play it. So and perhaps there'll be people out there who do like it, I'm sure, but it's not something on my list of games I'm dying to play.
Well, it's just strange how they've decided to go. Well, it's not strange how they decided to reboot it because, my gosh, the entertainment industry reboots everything, as we'll be talking about before the
Mhm.
end of the show. But to go ahead in this direction to make it a more general, standardized action game, it's gonna. I think it's gonna still have the open world elements from what I'm seeing, but to bring it out at a time like this, it's just coming off the heels of Madden NFL 23. Like you said, it's people already spending $60 or $70 who are interested in buying video games again. I still think this would have been a great July release. It would have been more high profile because it would have been the only real big game release of July, and just didn't decide to do it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just sometimes these video game publishers just blow my mind with the kind of things that they do. It's always like the video game publishers outside of Nintendo when they release something the first week of December when you could have released it, probably could have pushed it just a little bit more. I
Mhm.
understand crunch and all that. I don't want to go ahead and stress too much about it, but planning these things out where you could have released it just before Black Friday, which is obviously a big shopping time, just the way they planned out some of these things is just not too bright. I just don't think putting this right after Madden was, especially in a light year like this, was a great idea.
No, and then you look at a game like this, and it kind of reminds me of like the Death Stranding director's cut and the Ghost of Tsushima director's cut. Like these were games where like, oh, it'd be cool if those existed, but then nobody ended up buying them. So let's
Don't start with Death Stranding. There's a controversy on Death Stranding and the PC Games Pass type deal.
yeah, yeah, I saw it's going on. Yeah,
It's got
well,
a PC Games Pass, but it's not coming on Xbox Games Pass. So Xbox
yeah,
players
it's
are really mad right now.
yeah. I'm curious if there's like a what do you call it, some kind of exclusivity
I
type
would
thing that's
imagine.
all locked in with Sony. But anyways, like you see those games 3 months later, they're on clearance at Walmart, for half the price. So I kind of imagine that that's where this game's going to go. You don't actually see there's not a lot of marketing going on for this game either.
No,
So it makes me wonder, like, do the developers even have any faith in this, or are they just
sent
kind of
out to die, as we
right?
often say about movies.
Yeah, are they just kind of like throwing up a prayer and hoping it hoping it reaches the ears of the divine?
And again, in a year, and I'm going to stress this again, in a year with so few big name releases, so few high profile releases, it just seems very curious why they would go ahead and put it out with such little fanfare right behind Madden NFL 23 when you have pretty much most of the year to go ahead and bring this out in. And just, it seems to me like a missed opportunity. It's just almost reminds me of earlier this year when you had Horizon and Elden Ring come back to back, and everybody bought Elden Ring and just forgot about Horizon. And it just, even Gran Turismo 7, they forgot about Gran Turismo 7 because everybody was playing Elden Ring, and Elden Ring will end up being one of the biggest game successes of the year in a year where there's not many game releases. So Saints Row, if it's even decent, could have garnered a lot more publicity, even with a lot, a nice advertising campaign and a really good window where it was exclusive all by itself.
Yeah, isn't that funny though that we're talking about these big AAA titles like Horizon and Elden Ring, Gran Turismo, and then now we're comparing them to Saints Row and Madden.
Yeah. This tells you what this year's been. Again, people got
Yeah.
on my case because I said this is one of the worst years ever for video games. This
Yeah,
is one
well,
of the worst
it
year ever for
it
video games.
kind of is. Yeah, I mean, I'd be curious to know like what they're comparing it to, but yeah, it is pretty bad.
With a game that gets canceled or moved to 2023 seemingly every week, it just
Yeah.
seems to me like it's a no-brainer how bad this year has been.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, what are your thoughts out there on Saints Row, the rebooted series or the rebooted game that's coming out this week? People are excited about it, but not that many. Are you excited about Saints Row, the reboot, coming to store shelves and being able to get a chance to play it and get into the world of Saints Row once again? It's going to be a marketed change and difference from the type of Saints Row that you're used to playing before back in the day. So, are you excited for this reimagining and revisioning of Saints Row? Please let us know your thoughts. PopCultureCosmos at yahoo.com. Well, before we hit the break, my friend, I wanted to go ahead and talk real quick about Lord of the Rings because last week it went through the newswire that the rights for much of the Lord of the Rings, outside of the books, of course, as far as the actual publishing or anything of that nature, but the movie rights and everything surrounding the Lord of the Rings outside of the books, and of course the movies that were released under the Warner Brothers, the New Line Warner Brothers movies that everybody has known and seen and loved. Everything outside of that and the books, all the rights to it was purchased for I think $2 billion or $2 billion plus by the
Yeah.
Embracer Group.
Crazy. Yeah, that kind of came out of nowhere. Like
Yeah.
mm, they've been in the news a lot lately, but I was not
Yes.
expecting them to scoop up a property like Lord of the Rings. So,
And I
I
mentioned
guess
this company that they're a Swedish investment group. They're
mhm,
not a publisher per se, but they have a lot of publishers and development studios under their auspices because they bought Gearbox, they bought THQ Nordic, which we talked about, and several
right.
others they bought over the years. But they're more of an investment firm. And to go ahead and buy the rights to this, as far as the Lord of the Rings, as far as the movie rights, the which surprised me, the theme park rights
Mhm.
and video game rights and other things relating to it. All these different rights that they have now, they're talking about doing a whole bunch of movies on, as far as standalone movies, like a Gandalf movie and different other movies that they're going to make within the realms. Of what they talked about within the books because they have the rights to what was spoken and written about in the world of J.R.R. Tolkien. That's going to be something very interesting to see how this relates to their grand design. I'm not sure if they're going to be able to do as well with the property as what we've seen from the New Line Cinema and what they ultimately did with all the great stuff that they did with Lord of the Rings, and what we're seeing now with Amazon, hopefully in a couple of weeks with their version of Lord of the Rings going into the second age
Well, it's
and the Rings
interesting.
of Power.
Yeah, yeah, and that's also very interesting because the Embracer Group, like they own a bunch of game development studios, but they do not own any film production studios. So
But they talked about it.
They talked about it. Yeah, I mean, yeah, they'd like to, but they would ultimately have to contract to a New Line Cinema or a Legendary Pictures
Or Disney.
or Disney even to get these movies made, and that will come with a reduction in profit for them.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a very interesting move. I also am curious here, like, so the Embracer Group is interesting because the guy that started it, he originally started out as like a game seller. Like he would buy and sell games, and then
I
like he
remember that.
eventually built up his warehouse. So it's all, yeah, most of his stuff centers around game development, but never movies. So this is like such a surprise thing. I also wonder though, like now that he has the Lord of the Rings, are they going to be putting out games, in that world created by like THQ Nordic? In which case, like, no, no, please
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, don't put it out with,
Well,
we've seen
don't
already
you?
with Gollum that's going to be coming out next year that got pushed back, and
Mhm.
what we're going to be seeing, they've done well with the mobile games versions of Lord of the Rings, but Gollum is going to be coming out next year. That's a envisioning of the series, and people are kind of mixed on the reactions to that. But as far as how it looks so far, so that's part of the reason why they pushed it back to 2023. But yeah, if you go and you give this to THQ Nordic, I really think that's a miss, especially
Mhm.
after our conversation on THQ Nordic last week that people need to check out. I think that it's the best idea if you have Gearbox Entertainment under your wing. I'd probably say it's probably the best move that you can make because that seems to be the best development studio that you have under your wing. They've got several. I mean, they're not like a publisher themselves, but because they I guess
Right.
they go to THQ Nordic and they go to Gearbox and they go to all these publishers, all these game studios. They publish it yourself, so they're not a publisher per se, but we have a feeling that they're going to acquire more studios in order to go ahead and make sure that they have someone or something that's going to be able to do these a little bit better justice than what a THQ Nordic does. Because if they give it into THQ Nordic, you and I are already just see if you look at our faces on the video that we're doing right now, you could tell that that would probably be the wrong move.
Yeah, absolutely be the wrong move. Even if they were to acquire another AAA developer, like I still don't see it. Like they obviously quality control is not something they seem to really care
I mean,
about. So
because
that's
the Lord of the Rings Gollum game is looking okay, and that's being done by Daedalic, and
Mhm,
that's not a high-end video game maker either. That's someone that's right around in that THQ Nordic range with some
mhm.
hits and some misses. So I don't know. It just needs like if you go ahead and we both want a high end Lord of the Rings game, whether it's a an
Yeah,
MMORPG or an action game. We both have very fond memories of the Twin Towers and how that it was a great game
the
back in
Two
the day in the
Towers.
mid 2000s. Yeah, the Two Towers
Yeah.
and yeah, the Two Towers and how that was a great video game back in the day. And yeah, it just seems to me like you could really do this well, but you can also blow it as well.
Oh, yeah, I mean, and you gotta look at too with them saying like, "Oh, we wanna make spin-off movies on the origins of, like, Gandalf and Galadriel," and it's just
AON and all that. That's
Eowyn.
what I've seen. Yeah, I
It
saw the
you got
press
it's
release.
stick to that old proverb, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should, and if they're going to go about basically, like, making stuff that's outside the canon, because from everything I understand, the Amazon show and the movies, they're connected to each other, so they're not,
Yes. That's what
they're
they have the rights to, is what is ever in the movies.
yeah, yeah. So those ones are connected to each other. So I would hope that they wouldn't make something that would not be connected to that. But I also, you wouldn't make an acquisition like Lord of the Rings unless you had plans to reboot at some point.
Well, the
You know?
Embracer Group, yeah, they have access to the books. What's ever in the books is theirs, not to
Okay.
the movies. So that's something that people have to go ahead and differentiate. And like you said, if they go ahead and start making their own Gandalf movie and their own Eowyn movie and their own, just the whole nine yards as far as just the whole the Aragorn movie and just a Galadriel movie that then it's going to get the point, yes, they're trying to go ahead and maximize it for all it's worth. I really think the money is in the theme ride. They should
Yeah.
go to Disney or they should go to Universal and say, you know what, we really want to go ahead and license a ride through you guys. I really think that's a good financial opportunity. And that's where I would go to first. That's
Yeah.
just me.
Yeah. I mean, that would be ideal. And Universal, as we've seen from their stuff in Florida, like they are probably the right people to do something like that because they have, they've got some Disney properties on their lots, and yeah, that'd be a great move for them.
And they probably just send it to Six Flags and there you go.
Oh my gosh, no,
Or SeaWorld.
that's where those are where theme park ideas go to die.
Pretty much. But what are your thoughts out there on the Embracer Group purchasing the rights, the book rights, as far as the rights from the books, the characters and places and ideas from J.R.R. Tolkien's books, not the books themselves, but what are your thoughts out there on the Embracer Group purchasing much of the rights of the Lord of the Rings? Please share us your thoughts. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. My friend, it's been a great episode, but before we head on out, still got a little bit to talk about, including Archer coming back for season 13 on FX and Hulu this week. I'm kind of excited about it because Archer's been that show that I may not always catch on the first run, but I'll always catch it like maybe a few months down the line. I get some chuckles out of it. It's always got this really grand way of going ahead and showcasing her humor. It's really self-deprecating. It's a lot of fun. It doesn't take itself seriously at all. It's been under the radar now for 13 seasons going on, and it really is something that I think a lot of people should go out of their way to check out if they haven't already. It's a lot of fun, and I think it's a good series that's just something again that I think that people should go out of their way to go ahead and check out.
Yeah, I kind of fell off that wagon for a little bit. I remember I really loved the first like 3 or 4 seasons. Really funny. I always watched it with my friends and we talk about it all the time. And then I kind of just stopped because it reached the point where they're on like season 7. I was like, oh, this is never gonna end. So I kind of fell off of it for a while. But still, like when it's on, I'll watch it. To me,
Yeah.
it's like The Simpsons. Like it's endearing and it speaks to, much like Dragon Ball, like it speaks to its audience in a way that keeps them relevant. Looking at them going into like 12 seasons, like yeah, John Benjamin, like that guy is on so many things now, and like good for him. He's really made a big name out of himself with Bob's Burgers and Archer, and he was in Home Movies originally. So yeah, I mean, as long as people aren't telling you to stop making something, I don't see any reason why you wouldn't want to just continue it, especially if it's got that edgy humor that people seem to have come to know and love about the show.
Well, it's like one of those series now. It's now in that I guess the group of series that have been out for over a decade or right around a decade, or in the case of The Simpsons, going on 3 decades. That you could you may miss a few seasons of The Simpsons, but you can always pick it up at any point in time. Same thing with South
Mm.
Park. Same thing with Family Guy, Bob's Burgers. I'd put Archer in that realm. It's now getting to the point where you can start adding in Rick and Morty because that's going on season 7. That's coming up around the corner as far as the debut for that. So yeah, these long running animated series, adult comedies that are really kind of funny in its own way, you can always catch. They're like comfort food. You
Yeah.
know they're there. You know they're producing stuff each and every week. You don't follow it anymore each and every week, but when you catch it, you always know why you enjoyed it in the first place.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And yeah, I mean, like it's like I said with The Simpsons, I guess what kind of makes that show so great is that you don't have to like know any pre-existing mythology. If you're sitting at home one day and you're like, oh, I'm just going to turn on the TV for a few minutes, eat a snack, you can just jump into it and enjoy it. There's no pre-existing knowledge required for it.
Yeah, especially Archer. He's always getting himself into some kind of trouble. The
Mhm.
world's in danger. He always
Yeah.
manages to go ahead and save the day in his own inevitable way, and
Yeah.
it's get some laughs in and go from there. But yeah, it's just something you're very much familiar with. Once you've seen one, you've seen them all. But again, the way it amuses you out there, it's just something that is always there for you, and it's always something entertaining to see when you do. So,
Yeah.
Archer hits season 13 this week. Are you going to catch it? Are you a fan? Or as my daughters would say, are you an Archer stan and going ahead and checking out this week, or are you just going to go ahead and check it out in your own time? Please let us know your thoughts on Archer and where it stands with all these great comedies, these great animated comedies we've seen over the years. Please let us know your thoughts on Archer and where it stands in your heart. Popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. Well, before we hit our last subject about reboot ideas, which I know Josh is not too thrilled about, before we head on out, you got a chance to check out She-Hulk episode 1. I shared my thoughts on it. I thought it was okay. Thought it was pretty good. I thought the front and the back end of the episode were its failings, but the middle part, the middle 20 minutes of banter back and forth between Mark Ruffalo and Tatiana Maslany were very, very good and definitely worth the watch. Your thoughts on She-Hulk episode 1 before we head on out?
I think it did a lot of things really well. Like I can honestly say that I didn't sit there and watch it and wonder when it was going to be over. You know, that's
Well, it
something I've
goes
been
very
doing.
quick. It's a little over
It
30 minutes.
it does, but I mean, I don't know about you, but anything in this new line of Marvel stuff, I've always looked at my watch or the clock at least once while watching these shows. And this is the first time, even on Moon Knight, like I liked it, but I was like, oh, is this gonna keep going like this, or what's happening here? So that being said, like She-Hulk, I actually really enjoyed. You know, I looked at my wife while we were watching. I was like, there's honestly nothing that I'm objecting to in this show. Like it's great. You know, like
It's
looking
very
at that,
fast paced.
it's very fast paced. It's funny. You know, it's got a lot of humor. Like I love the dynamic between uh sorry, I don't remember the actress's name that plays
Tatiana Maslany.
yeah, her and Mark Ruffalo. Like I love the dynamic between their two characters and the like competitiveness and I don't know, it was fascinating and it was fun and it was something that I do see myself going back to next week to watch the next episode. I do want to say though, like I absolutely loved, even if it was done in a comedic way, I loved the arc that Mark Ruffalo had in there because they're painting a picture of the Hulk in a way that is, you know, he's alone, you know, he's lonely, you know, and like even seeing on the bar top how he had Tony Stark's initials carved into the bar because they like built that thing together, like that hit me really hard because you don't the Hulk is mostly used much like Thor now. The Hulk is used for comedic relief. You don't really get to see those emotional aspects of him. And this
Yeah.
show, even though it was funny, they still painted a picture of a very lonely person who has taken that mantle of responsibility a lot farther than he should have to.
Well, I definitely enjoyed the banter back and forth between Bruce Banner and Jennifer Walters, the characters within the realm of She-Hulk. I really liked the fact that their back and forth was what made it special for me. I was hoping again that they would stretch this out, this training over a course of 2 episodes before they went back to her life back in Los Angeles. I also wanted to see more of her life before she became She-Hulk, but of course they went right smack dab into the origins of She-Hulk, so they didn't
Yeah.
get a chance to do that. So I was kind of disappointed on that. And then on the back end, there is a confrontation that really has no explanation. It just shows,
Ye it was a showcase piece, I think.
yeah,
I wondered the same thing. My wife turned and she's like, "What? Why did that happen? Who is that?" And I think it's just
yeah,
like a showcase piece. They needed that to happen for the next parts because obviously, like, they're gonna recruit her to be a representative for the, you know,
Thunderbolts.
superpowered people, Thunderbolts, yeah, whatever, yeah. So that's, yeah, that was unexpected and weird, but, you know, for that they did that wrong, you know, that kind of bothered me. And there was one other thing that I can't quite remember at the moment, but for the most part, like the show was actually really good. It was great, I would say. Oh, they referenced the spaceship that like caused them to fly off the road. Like,
Yes, from
I,
Sakaar.
yeah. So I hope that Sakaar. Okay, so Sakaar.
That's going
Oh
to
my
lead into mostly a World War Hulk when Marvel gets back the movie rights next year from Universal.
yeah, okay. So Sakaar is the leads into the Hulk's son is named Scar and he lives on the
Yes,
planet Sakaar.
from
So that's
Thor Ragnarok.
that oh, yes, yes. Okay, so that will be interesting. Anyways, yeah, I enjoyed it. It was a good show. I'm just
And
curious
her
to see.
fascination with Captain America's love life obviously was
Yeah,
a
that didn't need to happen. Honestly, like that was just like it was funny, but the fact that that was what everybody took away from the episode was not yeah.
even Chris Evans, I guess, didn't know in advance, and then he had a good laugh over it. But Kevin
Mhm.
Feige actually is the individual who said you could, gave permission to go ahead for them to go ahead and elaborate on it and
Yeah.
theorize on it. And Hulk knew all along the actual insides between into the love life of Captain America. Who knew? Who knew?
Who knew or why they even like felt the need to focus on it that hard.
I think it was just because of a joke. Yeah, you're right. It was a focus, a great bit of focus on the episode, but
Mhm.
and it had everyone talking. I think it took away from, like you said, from the actual best parts of the episode, which was the banter between Jennifer Walters and Bruce Banner in the episode, which again was the best part of the episode. But
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
wanted something to create some interest, and I guess they did it with Captain America's love life out there in the in the world. So yeah, wouldn't you know? Wouldn't you know, indeed? But if you have thoughts out there on She-Hulk episode one, again, it was a pretty good episode for me. It seemed like it was a pretty good episode for Josh as well. Please let us know your thoughts. We'll be having thoughts on episode two coming up on the Friday show, plus also what Josh thinks about the episode two coming up next week as well. So please let us know your thoughts. Popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. Plus also on the Friday show with Melinda and I, looking forward to talking about Gamescom, at least the start of it. And on the back end, Josh and I will talk about Gamescom on the back end on the Monday show. So Gamescom all weekend long right there for you. Don't forget that, plus other stuff as well coming up. And of course, it's going to be a great time coming up this Friday on the PCC Multiverse. But before we head on out, my friend, I wanted to go ahead and hit you up with this because deadline, it seemed to be all on one same day. All these came out in as far as the same day on the Friday news dump that the latest reboot ideas that are in development are a return for Ally McBeal, even though there'll be a younger actress playing it, but Callista Flockhart is going to be still involved. There's going to be a reboot of Ferris Bueller and a reboot of Ocean's 11 with Ryan Gosling possibly involved. And even Margot Robbie's name has been mentioned as well. So I want to hear your thoughts on this. I really like Ocean's 11, the movies. I really enjoy my time watching those movies. Ferris Bueller, I know, has a place in 80s history. I thought it was an okay movie. Bueller. I really don't have the fascination with it that many did as far as embracing it, as far as a great part of the 80s, but I thought it was okay. And then, of course, Ally McBeal, which is an early 2000s hit for ABC at that point in time. Your thoughts? Are you excited for any of these reboots? Because to me, I'm just like, they're there. I think they could do something
Yeah.
different. But then again, this is entertainment and this is Hollywood. And we know they always go back to reboots at some point in time.
So my problem with reboots and these like sequels of long dead properties are it's the fact that like we've been there. Those stories have been told, we've mined those worlds. The characters have been fully developed, especially Ferris Bueller. Like I feel those characters were developed to a point where like I don't really need to see any more about them. You know, I feel like I came out of the ending of that movie satisfied. And
I mean,
that
I know the Cobra. The only good thing is that the Cobra Kai creators are working on it.
Yeah, so allegedly that one's gonna be more of like a what happened afterwards. So they're
Mhm.
talking about trying to get Matthew Broderick back, and I forget the guy that plays Cameron what his name was, but
They
uh,
actually did a very good job. Well, he's in Succession.
oh, okay, all right, yeah. So they're talking about doing that, and that might be cool. That could be something, but you know, Ally McBeal and what was the other Ocean's 11? Like Ocean's 11, they keep not learning their lesson. You know, that was such a great property. Ocean's 11 is great. Ocean's 12 was great. Ocean's 13 was okay. But then they put out Ocean's 8, you know, like the all female with all female cast, and like I've talked to people say, oh, it's okay, but like it just wasn't as well liked as the original ones, and it just didn't do that well. So I'm looking at this with like an Ocean's prequel with Ryan Gosling. I forget who the other actor or actress they got to play in
But
that is.
they're talking about Margot Robbie as far as
Margot.
being, yeah,
Yeah. I
yeah.
just like
They're actually doing the Barbie movie together.
I just like it's like that old saying like don't beat a dead horse, you know, like it just does anybody want this?
Well, I don't know. I have some great fond memories of watching the Ocean's movies. I even think Ocean's 13 is pretty good. I don't think it's as good as the first two, especially the second one.
Not
I thought Ocean's
best,
12 is
but
the
yeah.
best. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
So I
Ocean's
think
12 is great. Yeah.
yeah, I think Ocean's 12 of the 3 is the best, although all 3 I can sit down and watch at any point in time because I think all 3
Mhm.
are pretty good. But yeah, Ocean's 8. I liked Ocean's 8. I know again, like you said, there's a lot of flack against it, but I liked enjoyed Ocean's 8 for what it was. But yeah, going back to it, I'm not in any hurry. I'd have actually liked to seen a series instead of going into a movie with a big name actor. Kind of like going into a prequel series. I think that would probably have been better for the Ocean's IP, but that's just me. If you're going to have to go into it, I mean, there are some things out there I'd love to see rebooted. I mean, there are things out there that we've talked about over the years that I'd love to see brought back to life. But yeah, these are 3 properties that I'm like, okay. But although the Ferris Bueller idea, since they're approaching it like the way they did with Cobra Kai, they could strike gold once again.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they could. It's just does anybody want is anyone if you were to look at a list of properties where people are like, "Oh, I really would love to go back to that world," was Ferris Bueller at the top, would you say?
No, but if you're looking like Ferris Bueller and he's like what they did with Johnny Lawrence from Cobra Kai, having him be a man in his close to his 50, well, that man in his 50s, face down from being drunk last night and coming back from that to going ahead and being where he is today. Like he's now the major force, one of the major forces behind Cobra Kai. And now going into season 5, you see how well that they're doing. And it's so anticipated and it's now become a cornerstone of Netflix. You
Yeah.
see that Paramount wants that, so that's why they signed these guys. That's why they signed the guys up from Cobra Kai to go ahead and recreate that success for Ferris Bueller. So I can't say I blame them.
Yeah, no, I mean, I get why they do it. It's just like not this is not a great time for like original stories, you know? Like, we just
Has there
can't.
ever been in the since we've been doing this show?
No, there hasn't, but the '90s was, like, an amazing time for, like granted, like, probably only about 30% of what was put out in the '90s was actually good, but they just shot things off in every direction to see what would stick to the wall, and, at least there were options back then, you know? Like, you go into, these, like, used bookstores that sell, like, VHS tapes, and it's just so amazing just how much garbage came out at that time, but you could still go and like watch it. You know, you can watch something that's not related to Marvel. You can watch a property that's not related to another property. You have to watch 20 movies to understand this movie, you know, and that was something I love and admire about that time of filmmaking.
What are your thoughts out there on the reboots in the works for Ocean's 11, Ferris Bueller, and Ally McBeal? Please let us know your thoughts. PopCultureCosmos at yahoo.com. My friend, it's been a great episode. But any last thoughts before we head on out?
None that I can think of. Gamescom's coming up, and you know, I'd be curious to know what's coming out of there. There's also been a lot of leaks. Ubisoft's like a very leaky ship when it comes to keeping their secrets, and the Assassin's Creed Infinity stuff has been interesting to read. So, you know, it'll be nice to we'll discuss that, I'm sure, at a later date. But a lot of some it sounds like it's something that could be pretty cool.
Well, we'll definitely go ahead and cover it for you coming up this week. And this week on the PCC Multiverse. And of course, next Monday, right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos. So for Josh Peterson, this is Gerald Glassford. It's another beautiful day in paradise right here in the Pop Culture Cosmos. We thank you for listening. And here's hoping you have yourself a great